Britain and Germany are at war. The Prime Minister, Mr. Neville Chamberlain, broadcast at 11:15 a.m.
I have to tell you now that no such undertaking has been received, and that consequently this country is at war with Germany.
"90% of the city's housing stock was damaged, with many industrial and civic landmarks razed to the ground. When news reports referred to an East Coast town, the rest of the country were oblivious to the poundings of the city. The government didn't want Hitler to know how much damage he was causing.
So I was going to work one morning and I fell on Beverly Road. "Hey Freddie, so you're going to work?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Don't bother." He says, "Because your place is flattened."
Well, one of the main ones, I think the Prudential building was the main one, which really stood out. That was the main one.
And what happened to it?
Well, the area was bombed and they had to pull it down because it's such a dangerous condition. A lot of people got killed down in the cellar when the mains were burst.
It's funny, I remember as a young child the war seemed very exciting. Nights spent down in the air raid shelter cocooned me from the reality outside. That was until the night a huge landmine went off. It was on the allotments where Bird's Eye is now. And I was blown from the top bunk of my bed in the air raid shelter to the floor. Now apparently I missed all the excitement because I didn't even wake up. But I do recall the scale of destruction was massive.
And we came home for the night, and we had the sirens going on. The sirens were on at the night time. Anyhow, next morning, about 8 o'clock time, we was walking from our house in Garden Village to Alexander Dock, and as we was coming down Craven Street, we had a great big loud explosion. And as we got onto Alexander Dock, we had a mine had gone off in the dock. Anyhow, eventually found out that it was my uncle's ship was in this first bay where this landmine had gone off, and there was 3 or 4 barges in that bay, and they all sank. And one of them was my uncle's ship. There was also another ship there belonging to Lincoln and Hull, and there was a man and wife lived on the ship, and they were both drowned.
Those were terrible nights, those. The air raid buzzers went, and eventually the sky became one white, dazzling cloud. It was the chandeliers that the aircraft came in front of the bombers and dropped these chandeliers, and they were parachute lights, and they hovered over the city. And it was like broad daylight, and then the bombers came in and dropped it all. And although the city was protected by barrage balloons, they were so high that it didn't make any difference. But of course the city was devastated.
Well, this is from my father, who worked at Rickett and Coleman down Dansom Lane. He was there during the war, and he was actually at Rickett's when it was bombed in May 1941, when it was actually absolutely flattened. He does say that when Churchill came to visit Hull, and he came down what was Dansom Lane then, around the Kent Street area, the population weren't too happy with him. And obviously he had a victory sign, and they had a similar sign, which was obviously a little bit different.
Army bomb disposal teams took many months to remove the countless bombs which had failed to go off. One of those soldiers was Jim Mulgrove, a Geordie who settled in the city after the war.
Well, when I came to the city in 1944, the city had been heavily bombed, There was enormous gaps within the city, and I came here in bomb disposal, and I came for a year and was diffusing and removing bombs from around the city. Enormous devastation, a lot of sadness, and a number of properties that were demolished through the German bombing raids. It was really, the city took more bombing for its size of population than any other city in the United Kingdom. And a lot of people think that's hard to believe, but it's absolutely true.
The usual whine of a bomb swishing, and it was the landmine that dropped more or less at the bottom of our yard actually, and demolished our house and the two houses next to us and the whole terrace and the 2 or 3 houses on the other side of the terrace at the front. So it demolished quite a number of houses actually. My grandfather lived in the corner house at the terrace and he was killed. I'm not sure whether he was in his area shelter or not. He had one in his garden. I just don't know. There were quite a number of people killed, and there were 12 people killed I think and 20 odd seriously injured. I was buried for 4 hours, which was an experience.
In March and April 1941, 2 heavy raids in North and Central Hull destroyed homes and shelters, killing 143 and injuring 100. On the night of the 16th of April, Ellis Terrace communal shelter took a direct hit from a 1-ton bomb. The whole community ceased to exist. They couldn't count how many people had been in the shelter. They had to guess at around 60. Men, women and children.
I got a call out to a case in Studley Street. And this lady, I should say she'd be about 35 to 37. There was 2 more children, and I think it was a husband or whether it was a warden there, I don't know, but the alert went. And they went into the air raid shelter, and I carried on delivering the baby. The mother was in a corner of the room. The room was blackened as dark as possible, but I had no assistance, but marvellously everything went very, very well, even though the alert was still on. There was no bombs being dropped at that time, but we knew everything could be won any time, but we carried on very well indeed, and everything went very, very well. And the mother was very happy, and the baby, lustrous baby, lovely baby. And then the all clear went. Well, then her husband came back with these 2 children, and I said, well, in this case then, I'll go, I'll be on the way then. And so I got on the cycle and I got to Garden Village. And when they got to Garden Village, the alert went again as though the plane had turned round to come back again. And I can more or less, you could, well, I don't know, but I looked up in the sky and I thought, oh my word, Ethel, be quick. You know, pedal as fast as you can. And I got it, at that time I was in lodgings in Lake Drive. And I went into the ambulance shelter in Lake Drive. I hadn't been in there above 5 minutes when this, huge bang. And we all clung together. We thought, something's happened, seriously happened, you know. And we stayed there, you heard the ambulances going and the sirens blowing, and something serious. And then the all clear went after that. About, as you say, 3/4 of an hour after that, the all clear went. And we went in to bed. Next morning I got up to go to do my work as usual. I made the first call to Studley Street. But as I was going along Oldness Road, I thought, oh dear me, something serious here. I wonder what's happened. There was barricades across, policemen, and ambulance men, and dear me, I thought, oh dear. And I did ask a policeman, I said, what's happened? What's happened? He said, I'm afraid it's very, very serious. It's all Studley Streets and all the communicating shelters are all wiped down. And Studley Street. I said, not Grafton Terrace, Studley Street. He said, yes, I'm afraid it's down. There's nothing. No. I remember saying my prayers that night. You know, the next night. The little baby would be 9 pounds 2 ounces, and I'm sure it would be the youngest, smallest child, the baby to be born during the war. He would only live 2.5 to 3 hours. I'm sure it would be the youngest casualty at the war, in all the war, that little baby, bless it.
By 1943, American servicemen garrisoned the region in strength. In July of that year, an imaginative and resourceful pilot from the US Air Force Base at Gox Hill relieved a crashed Lockheed Lightning fighter of its gun camera, hitched its 24-volt battery pack onto his shoulders, took the Humber ferry with his English girlfriend, and shot this rather shaky but unique footage of Hull as he drove his Jeep around the city the morning after one of the last major raids.